Hey guys, hope you're keeping well. Just want to do a very quick announcement before we get started today with the programmed interview. Is that Storytime is going to be making a much anticipated and requested return to Patreon. So I just wanted to do a quick announcement here, give you guys a few bullet points, so maybe you can head on over to the Patreon and check it out, especially considering I am now in dissertation mode. I also explained what that is over on the Patreon. Where while I am in dissertation mode, I'm essentially only doing interview content, and this is probably for like the foreseeable future. So if you're interested in seeing other types of content and also supporting the channel while I am hard at work on this degree that I feel like I've been in forever, come on over and pay us a visit. So October 18th is when it is going to take place, 5 p.m. Denver time. I know for you European folks, that's probably going to be a tough sell with the 8-ish hour time difference, but that's just the best I can do. These usually go on for about 30 minutes, and it's seekers, so like the $10 tier that gets invited to the actual live reading, but all patrons get access to the recordings that are posted from those live meetings. What I'll be reading is essentially be doing one of like a folk tale from my extensive, this is just the surface of my folktale collection. I'll be reading from across all Scandinavian countries. I've got Norwegian, Swedish, some Danish, and then I will also be reading myths that are in prose form from new authors, such as, of course, Kevin Crossley Holland's pretty famous interpretations. So this will take place on Zoom at a link that I post up to Patreon. And of course, there will also be a small conduct agreement included in that Zoom link post. Not because I anticipate that any of you are going to be party crashers or troublemakers. Why would I ever think that? But I've also just learned from experience that it's worth being prepared for that kind of thing. So please, guys, reach out to me if you have any questions. Really hope to see you over on the Patreon for these story times. Now, I will stop filibustering. Let's get into this interview with Sowulo about his new album, NIHT, and of course, so much more along the way.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, everyone, and welcome back to the Nordic Sound. As always, I am your host, Jamison Foster, ethnomusicologist at the University of Colorado Boulder, and today I am joined once again by Mr. Faber Horbach of Sowulo. Faber, I know it feels like we just sat down to talk about music not too long ago, but you were hiding a trick up your sleeve. You had a new album coming out that you managed to stay perfectly quiet about. So I am so happy. Yeah,
I slipped a little like comment in the last talk that we did that
Yep.
something was boiling.
Yep, but I didn't realize it was literally boiling, as in ready.
Oh yeah,
And I
yeah,
was like, "Oh, that sneaky guy! He knew about it the whole time." But
yeah,
no, I am so happy to have you back on so soon. I know we just talked about briefly rubbing shoulders at Midgårdsblot.
yeah.
Speaking of which, excellent job at Midgårdsblot this year. People were into it. Yeah. How did you feel about being back at that festival?
Yeah, it was amazing to be back. It's such a lovely, lovely festival. Like atmosphere is amazing
Hmm.
between the grave mounds and the longhouse and everything. The the people are so beautiful and the Viking market is so beautiful. So the atmosphere is just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, we
Um,
try to be beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. And we saw that clearly and we enjoyed that very, very much. The show was also super nice. Of course, we had some new material to play.
Hmm.
So that was super exciting too. And it was like completely lit with the sun. We were full face within the sun. So that was a bit difficult. Also for all the ancient instruments and historical instruments, they went crazy, but
Yep.
we succeeded in playing on them, and it was a great show. Yeah, we
Yeah,
really enjoyed it.
think about it in terms of this way. At least the lighting was nice for the photographers, right?
Exactly. My light guy was also like, "I'm here just for fun. It doesn't matter what I do
The
here."
sun is doing my job.
Exactly. I can play a bit with the smoke, but the rest is just bullshit. Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
is great. Some of my favorite sets are like seeing, this because mostly this happens to friends of mine, where I actually really get a kick out of seeing how friends deal with having the sun in their face. Because it was the same year you played last year. There was a band called Gangar who played. They're like a folk rock band, and their fiddler is like this very, very pale guy. And same thing, sun in his face, and he was just dripping sweat and turned cherry red for the whole set. I gave him so much crap about that, but that's a type of challenge you don't think about, when you're just in the audience. Like, even just having to deal with the sun can be an
Oh yeah.
unexpected challenge.
Oh yeah. You definitely wanted to wear sunglasses.
Yeah,
Like, oh yeah, yeah. There it was so bright. Yeah.
yeah, you just need to find some nice Viking age sunglasses, and then
Oh yeah.
oh, you know what you need is those the visor things that the ancient Arctic peoples used to wear. Fit
We,
right in.
we yeah, we can make that from birch or something
Yeah.
like yeah.
Oh, awesome. And then yeah, and then of course Faber, especially because you were just telling me about having to do your language classes this morning. I do really appreciate, after a whole day of having to, alternate between your native language, your new learned language, and now in English to do an interview at the late in the evening for you. I do really appreciate you coming on to talk about it with everything you've had going on today.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, like I was worried a bit because of being back in the at school basically for this language course in Swedish. I just started and everything is super super new. So yeah, I really had to take a walk in the forest before I could do this talk. Yeah, yeah.
And and of course that's always allowed around here. We encourage forest walks around the Nordic
Oh
Sound.
yeah, exactly.
All right, yeah, man. So I was thinking about some more general conversations to have that we didn't really get to too much last time. That I was thinking about it, and I think that it would help a lot to put a lot of what you did with this new album, NIHT, into more context. And one of those questions, and don't feel pressured into speaking too personal if you don't feel like going there, but I always find it really interesting learning about what draws musicians like yourself to this kind of alternative spirituality. Because especially following your promotional runs leading up to this album, you are very clearly a spiritually aligned person. I would be shocked to find out if you were an atheist. So I'm really interested to hear, sort of maybe just in a more general sense, what all those years ago or however recently brought you or attracted you to this thing we can broadly call paganism, or just being a wizard, essentially.
Exactly. Wow, man, this is such a big topic.
Hmm.
We could easily talk about hours or maybe
Yep.
days about. But I will try to narrow it down a
Okay.
bit.
Yeah, yeah.
But like, okay, let's start with the very, very beginning. And
Hmm.
that was just as a child, I felt really, really attracted to nature.
Hmm.
I would say or think that every child f feels that, but I really felt the magic of nature, and in the Netherlands, there's not so much of it.
Hmm.
You've got beautiful places, of course, and there I really felt the magic, but most of it is just concrete jungle.
Hmm.
And so there, this fascination with nature started, and I must say, like, if you skip forward to my teenage years, I really went into Wicca. Like, my mother is a witch, and
Okay. Awesome.
she did like a lot of how do you say it, like therapy
Hmm.
work and stuff like that. And she had some influences and told me about like, oh, um, there are really interesting stuff that you can read about spirituality and Wicca, and you, come on, just discover it. So that is where I started. But it really didn't feel the thing that I was looking for.
Hmm.
And basically, I think really later on, oh, this is a funny story. Like I went and I became part of a black metal
Hmm.
band when I was, I think, something like 17 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the synthesizer player.
Mm-hmm.
So my vision was, oh, we're gonna go orchestral like Dimmu Borgir or something like that. And but this guy, he was like, "Oh, I'm really happy that you're here and you're gonna put in some nice melodies. We're gonna change the music into Viking metal." And
Yeah.
I was like, "What the fuck? Is this a joke?" We're not gonna like pretend we're Vikings and what the fuck
Mm-hmm.
is this about? What are we gonna yeah, like Viking metal is just a bunch of nonsense. Like we're not Vikings. We're not gonna pretend to be Vikings. What are the songs are going to be about and stuff like that. And then he was like, "Yeah, but we're gonna do it anyway, because you're just new and fresh. We're just gonna do
Oh,
it."
you'll
And
learn.
then you will learn. And then I was like, "Okay, what is this all about?" And then he gave me some books, and so those books just fascinated me.
Mm-hmm.
Like something changed in me. Like I saw the culture, like the um, cultural and archaeological
Mm-hmm.
stuff that just put a light, put a fire in me. And then he gave me some the Edda,
Mm-hmm.
and then I was like, oh wow, this is this like an actual mythology, and I just went deeper and deeper.
Mm-hmm.
And
What did the Eddas? So I'm wondering about if you have this original attraction to nature. Was there anything in particular about the Eddas that maybe spoke to that, or was this a whole new interest to you that was maybe not so related to the nature thing?
well, it connected really fast when I just started reading about the becoming of the cosmos. And
Mm-hmm.
like you've got ice
Yeah.
and fire and how like all beings started developing, and they were like creating Earth
Mm-hmm.
from the skull of Heimir and the blood, and like that was really fascinating, and
Mm-hmm.
like creating humans out of the Ask and the Embla.
Mm-hmm.
Like they carved it from wood and blew like life in it,
Mm-hmm.
gave it senses, and so I felt like a lot of natural nature stuff was in there,
Mm-hmm.
and and starting to look at it on a symbolic level right from the start. Like
Mm-hmm.
they don't mean a literal giant. They just mean something like really cosmic
Mm-hmm.
big, right? And when you like read it like that, then it becomes really powerful. And
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, then Einar Selvik dropped the first album of
Mm-hmm.
Vardruna in 2008, and that just blew my mind.
Yep.
And um, that just made me eager to go deeper into our roots, and I did, and I was reading a lot about shamanism
Mm-hmm.
in Northwest Europe, and yeah, I even did like two, you could say, courses.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just really private, two private weekends with Einar Selvik,
Mm-hmm.
teaching us some amazing shamanistic Northwestern Europe tradition, like
Mm-hmm.
Seid and Galder. That was amazing. And that just, from that, it just took off.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah,
Yeah. Both.
even
Yep. Please continue. Yep.
in those weekends, my intention through magical singing was to get myself into a new chapter, a chapter of quitting my job as a physiotherapist
Mm-hmm.
and starting becoming a full-time musician. And that really happened after a couple of months, maybe no, like a year or two.
Mm-hmm.
That really, really realized. So, so from that. that are just stepping stones to becoming more and more spiritual and let's say believe in it
Hmm.
because it was happening.
Hmm. Yep.
Uh, when I used magic to get to a new point, it really happened.
Hmm.
So of course, then you get deeper and deeper, and you just make it part of your system and make it part of your life.
Yeah, beautifully said, man. Yeah, and then that's also where you sort of took off musically, and it's just really nice to connect those threads because as I said, we did talk about this, and then just a little plug for people listening. If you want to hear more about what happens after that, please listen to the last interview that me and Faber did. If you want to learn more about Faber's sort of journey from there to where we are now with NIHT. But yeah, I really just wanted to connect those threads because I did feel like there was some ground there that we didn't cover. And I'm
Yeah.
glad to hear my intuition was on point because yeah, you brought up some cool stuff that we did not get to talk about last time.
Cool.
Yeah, so thank you for humoring me with that, Faber. So
Cool.
getting to actually talk about NIHT, especially with that spiritual background, this is an album about night. A lot of your promotional stuff leading up to it is talking about how that's more than just a time and it's all the symbolism in the night, and how it has to do with grief even and things like that, which we are definitely going to get into. But I guess first, language. We have talked about language before, but it's still every time you release a new album, I'm just struck by just how much of of how much language plays into your music. And so, especially considering not everyone can exactly speak this old language or even understand it, I'm curious to
Yeah.
hear what you think the role that language plays in your music is, or what do you hope that language does with this music, especially if most people listening to it can't really understand it. So I guess if I can simplify the question, what is language doing in your music or for your music, if it's not specifically for communicating literally?
Yeah. Well, it's a really simple question. I hope
Mhm.
I can answer it pretty quick.
Okay.
But but I started with the solo music as a pure instrumental thing.
Hmm.
The first two albums are completely instrumental,
Hmm.
no voices at all. But at the same time, I was doing my spiritual path,
Hmm.
and indeed, like I said, like I did this teaching from Einar about magical singing.
Hmm.
So of course that was playing a role in my spiritual path, not necessarily in my musical path, because I
Hmm.
was not singing for as an enjoyment. I was just purely doing that as a magical tool.
Hmm.
Um, and because I was searching for a language to do magical work with, I was like not feeling modern day language,
Hmm.
not like English or Dutch. Didn't work,
Hmm.
and I was doing this course, shamanistic year course, and
Hmm.
a lot was what was happening was we had to reconnect with our ancestors,
Hmm.
like our personal ancestors. We really had to dig deep into our personal bloodline, but also the collection of ancestors, the collective ancestors.
Hmm.
And that made me wonder, like, what if I could use the language of ancestors? And as a historical nerd, I'm really into the early Iron Age and Bronze
Hmm.
Age. Not necessarily the later Viking
Hmm.
1,000 years after Christ, but more the 500,
Hmm.
around 500 after Christ. And I was thinking like it would be awesome, fucking awesome, if I could do spells and
Hmm.
magical singing in that language. Maybe I can do Old Frisian.
Hmm.
So I connected to Old Frisian, the university, and they were like, no, you can only have a couple of words, but you cannot do fully sentences. But you really need to go deep into Anglo-Saxon or Old English because it's so super related. It's basically same, but then you can go crazy,
Mm-hmm.
go cr wild. So I went really deep into the Anglo-Saxon literature, and I found these rune poems and stuff like that. And I started working with them and started to collect beautiful words and small sentences and stuff like that in my magical work. And then I wrote the Man album.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to wait for, I don't think, I think a month before I could mix it because I was recording most of it at my home studio. And then the mixing part in a beautiful, amazing studio, I had to wait for that. But I was so into the Anglo-Saxon magical language that I started ch chanting something on the last track that I made.
Mm-hmm.
That was Wildum,
Mm-hmm.
Deran, and that worked just beautiful. So then I thought like, yeah, maybe I'm gonna sing on this album. I don't know. And in that month, I just wrote the entire
Mm-hmm.
lyrics of that album. And and from that point it started really like working as a magical language. You really feel it like
Mm-hmm.
it is so connected to Dutch and English that you've got some understanding, you've got some grip on it. Nicht is night,
Mm-hmm.
and in Dutch it's Nacht.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got Nacht, night, nicht. Oh
Mm-hmm.
man, it's so close.
It's
So you really feel it, and like, and then your monkey brain is set off to a different place because you cannot um, um, your gray mass. How do you say that in
oh, gray
English? Like,
matter. Yep.
yeah, your gray matter in your brain is just thinking processes. But like the cognition is a nice tool,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just a tool, but it's taking everything over. But if you can put that on a lower level, then the emotional structures in your brain have way more power, basically,
Mm-hmm.
or activity. So if you just take this ancient language, then you're not so much in a cognitive state of mind, but you can be more in an emotional state of mind. And
Mm-hmm.
that is, of course, like magical portals. You can really go into deep and come on this different level of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it really works like that. And I really believe that if people are listening to it, they don't understand it with their gray matter, but they really, really understand it on an emotional level.
Yeah, no, I
And
mean, that's beautifully put because, I mean, like, it is one of the most common questions I get whenever I'm not even just teaching about it, but you know when you're presenting at conferences or you're writing papers and people have questions for you, one of the most common questions that I get is like, why the old languages? And then even talking to my other academic friends who also study different musics, they have the same question for me. It's like, you know, why not just sing in a language that you understand? And I always like to bring up the fact that, you know, if this music is deeply intertwined for most people with matters of spirituality, and you consider that most religions do not conduct their rituals or services in the colloquial language. That's actually a pretty new thing.
Mhm.
Latin for Christian services, right? It's such a
Yeah,
common thing to separate the mundane everyday from the spiritual just by using a more arcane language.
yeah.
There was another guy who wrote he wrote a paper on Enslaved because they were one of the first bands, if not the first, to use Old Norse in their music, and he put it very simply: people don't want to experience spirituality in the same language that they use to order dinner. Like
Yeah,
there needs to be some sort of different language to use. And so I'm not
exactly.
surprised at all that you're thinking very much in the same way, but you describe it in a much more scientific way. I love that.
I had some
Yeah.
thoughts about it. And of course, like if you go really deep into spirituality and magic, magic can be defined as not normal.
Hmm.
You like if you practice magic, you try to get out of this normal state
Hmm.
and you want to go into something completely upside down. Um, and so it's so logical to use not normal language.
Hmm.
It fits really into the concept of what magic is.
Hmm. Yep. It is funny because it is a very easy question to ask, right? If you're not familiar with it, or maybe, I even know a lot of people who've been listening to this kind of music for years, and they're always like, yeah, I don't really know why I listen to this music in a language I don't understand. And I do love bringing that up. It's because you want to listen to this music that is different from the language that you experience on a daily basis. And I love that you connect it to emotional rather than cognitive experience because, yeah, fits well with what music does to begin with.
Exactly. Like most of the people don't listen to music as, oh, like this is happening and oh, that's a nice movement.
Hmm.
But they're listening as an emotional thing
Hmm.
because they're not educated
Hmm.
in music. Or like let's say, yeah,
I
black
miss
white
those
story
days.
this, but
Yep.
like yeah. So they experience it completely else. Yeah. So that's the same.
Hmm.
You really experience music as a more something on an emotional level. Yeah,
And you bring up something, I just kind of made a dumb joke, but I mean, like, honestly, I do kind of miss the days of listening to music before I was a musicologist sometimes
exactly.
because I spend at this point, I've been in school for like 10 years. I've spent the last decade studying music at this level that such a small percentage of the world population studies it for. And sometimes I really wish just for a day I could snap my fingers and go back to just that purely
Yeah.
reactive listening emotionally without because it's impossible to turn it off for me. I can't not listen with like the last decade of studying music in mind. So I get what you're saying because that being able to listen to music in that way is actually something a lot of musicologists and then especially trained musicians do kind of miss, right? The good
Yeah,
old
I
days.
also miss that a lot because I'm complaining about music every day. Everybody's getting mad because I'm just complaining. I'm just this horrible person that is complaining about music all the time because I think everything, no, and like 95% is shit. Um, and it's just copy paste and the same, and it drives me mad, like
Dude,
really crazy.
no
Even
one
now
hates.
in this Viking scene
Mhm.
thing, stuff is happening that I really disapprove, just
Yep.
going mad on copy paste.
Mhm.
But I also enjoyed as a teenager listening to music on this complete other
Mhm.
level. And of course, when I was 10, I started playing classical piano. So
Mhm.
that's already when the trouble started. Um, but uh, but I can remember that just like also like sounds. Now I'm also like this fancy music producer. So I listen to sounds in a complete different way because I'm
Mhm.
thinking about where is this on the spectrum and stuff like that. But that completely destroys it as well, right? Um, but I like remember how the distortion of an electric guitar just blew my mind. Only the sound of it and the magic of it. But that's gone. Like you can never go back. But once in a while, I listen to South American music, like Buena Vista Social Club, and
Excellent,
oh
excellent
man,
choice.
and then I just can be on this different place again because I don't understand it enough to grasp it, and then I can just enjoy the music as I used to do.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I love that you brought them up of everyone because they are fantastic. I mean, whenever I teach my music appreciation course, and I get to Latin American music, that is my favorite time of teaching because I
Oh
get to
yeah.
just sit there and listen to Buena Vista Social Club and make these hostage kids listen to it too, and I'm like, yes, get cultured.
It's one of my favorite too. When I just
Excellent.
buy myself a big fat cigar and then the sun and listen to Buena Vista, that's my happy zone. Oh yeah.
Oh God, this is beautiful. I'm uncovering a new Faber lore, because, and that's
Oh yeah.
also a good point. That is what actually so many of us do, right? When we do kind of miss that feeling, is we put on something completely different. West
Yeah.
African drumming, gamelan, all these other kinds of music. Yeah, I'll put it on so I have no idea what's going on, and I like to keep it that way.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you brought up that no one hates music as much as musicians, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh
it's,
yeah.
it's what we're good at. Yeah, man. So going into actually talking about the album, finally, as we've been threatening to do for a good amount of time now, just more bird's eye view. What did you want to do differently going into this album? Compared to your previous albums, because I know at the other end, I can see all of the things that are different about NIHT compared to everything else you've done. We will certainly talk about that, but I was wondering if, like, from the beginning, right, when even if you can remember back that far in the creative process, what did you want to do differently with NIHT from the outset compared to what you have already done before?
Well, like if you follow my music, my discography,
Mm-hmm.
then everything becomes more and more complex.
Mm-hmm.
More layers, more difficult melodies and counter melodies and even like a rhythm. And then a couple of albums later, it's polyrhythm, and then you add up polyrhythm with multiple melodies. And sometimes also like not connected, so they get off and come back again. So complexity was went up, 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 uh, on some certain degree. Like I really would love to make even more complex
Mm-hmm.
music, but there was a limit. But now with the Nicht album, I really felt okay. It's going to be about the night. It's gonna be dark, maybe about the moon, maybe about the night, maybe both. So it needs to be more calm, a bit more relaxed, and it needed to be more simple in a
Mm-hmm.
way. Um, Simple in the way of not so many layers, not
Mm-hmm.
so much counter melodies, multiple melodies and multiple polyrhythmic things. Of course, it's still there, but just was taking it more in a minimalistic way
Mm-hmm.
because it feels for me that I went through spring and summer and autumn and just came back to the winter period,
Mm-hmm.
and everything becomes more calm and quiet, and the complexity of all the colors because there's less light in wintertime or in nighttime. So the complexity of all the colors are more minimalistic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so that idea came up really, really early. Um, yeah,
Yeah, I'm glad, because I was kind of wondering, when you're thinking of how to ask questions, I always have to be worried, like, am I going to ask this question in a way that makes it seem like I have an answer that I want, or can I ask this question in a way that just, like, is very neutral? And I'm really glad I went with neutral, because the way I was going to ask it is, this album's about night. Did that have anything to do with it being quieter? I was going to start the other way around, because
yeah,
this
exactly.
album, compared to all of your other records, is definitely quieter. What really struck me was how, if I can call your other albums more like productions, right? Like, they're, as you said, there's so
Mhm.
much going on. It very much is like a production. And that's not
Yeah,
a value judgment at all. It's just different ways of making music. Is that when I put this album on, and it was not, quieter isn't the right word, but it felt like I was in the room with the musicians as opposed to in the audience watching a stage. It felt like I was
yeah.
in, I don't know if this is
Oh, yeah.
making any sense, but
Oh, yeah, totally.
cool. Good. Glad. So that is what struck me about listening to this album the very first time, is that compared to everything else you've done, it's, I'm going to use the word more intimate, or
Exactly.
gentle, where the
Yeah.
instruments feel like they're in the room with
Yeah.
me. And I'm glad that my intuition again was correct, that like the actual concept of the album influenced the way that you approached making music.
Yeah, like Woord is the lo last album, like
Mm-hmm.
before NIHT. That was about faith and
Mm-hmm.
destiny, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like cosmic scale. Um, so I was also making everything on a cosmic scale,
Mm-hmm.
like so much layers, but also the recording techniques more further away, so
Mm-hmm.
it would be more like an orchestra feel.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and now it's way more intimate, way more close mic'd,
Mm-hmm.
way less instruments and layers.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, intimacy is key in this album. It's really like up close. Yeah,
Yeah, I just definitely, I lovingly call it studio magic. I heard less studio magic than I typically
yeah,
hear from albums, which do, because studio magic is required to get that big sound.
yeah,
Unless you do literally have an orchestra, you're not going to get that just recording a few instruments, right?
exactly.
And to me, that goes to show just like how a concept, right? Making an album based purely on a concept and letting it organically go from there can lead to some really cool new experimental things as an artist, especially when you've been doing this for a while now, right?
Yeah,
And it's so easy for musicians to eventually find themselves at a fork in the road. Stay keep what's been working. It might not work again, but it's been working, or try something new, which might also not work, but you ultimately need to decide what you're going to choose to do. You can't just stand there unless you're done making music. So, seeing what happens when you go with the concept and let it lead you to new kinds of sounds and new ways of making music, we now have a Sowulo album that is the most quiet or intimate than like your very first record, which it's really cool to hear you return to that kind of sound after having gone cosmic. What were some challenges with that? Like, did you find yourself having to like course correct, like, oh, I'm going into the big sound again, I got to pull back? Like, what kind of challenges were there with writing music that had an almost entirely, not entirely different style, but you know what I mean, a different mood than what you had been previously working with?
yeah. I really had to hold back sometimes, and I'm really happy that for example, I made some tracks about the stars, and then I
Mm-hmm.
could play with cosmic scale again, but in a new way. Um, so I really had to hold back because I just love orchestra. I
Mm-hmm.
listen to classical music a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So my ears are just really used to a lot of layers, multiple at the same time. Um, and so I really had to hold back. And an important thing is that I have like a group of amazing musicians around me,
Mm-hmm.
helping me mostly to translate my music for a live show.
Mm-hmm.
But I also ask them politely to record sometimes with me, and now I just had to let's say disappoint a lot of people because I just needed a few.
Yeah.
Um, and so that was also a difficulty, like
Mm-hmm.
really like having all this beautiful people around you, and you can make this big sound. And I knew um, like I was developing this big sound, and oh, now let's go even bigger and even bigger. And then taking it a step back is also it's also mentally was difficult because I wanted to go even bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I also think that that sound is really typical for or unique for solo.
Mm-hmm.
Like nobody, I don't know some other pe people in this genre that is creating like so much of something that I always joke about and call a Viking orchestra.
Yeah.
Like so much layers, so much instruments at the same time
Hmm.
that I think that that sound makes it really unique. So it's also a little bit scary to let that go.
Hmm. For sure.
And because I didn't want to sound like, for example, Vardruna or Heilung.
Hmm.
Um, but of course, when you take it a step back, then it becomes more like that.
Hmm.
So that was also like a challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, always, especially because, I've talked about this with so many people. If you think about this, relatively speaking, this genre is still so young. Um, and there are those big name bands and artists that are like trailblazing for it, and that so many people sort of take whichever percentage from whichever band they want to sound like, and that sort of thing. Where it is kind of funny how easy it is to even just like unintentionally sound like Vardruna or Heilung, just by the nature of the fact that we're working in this style of music that really has. It kind of reminds me of the early days of hard rock, where it was really hard to not sound like Led Zeppelin. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, or AC/DC. You eventually get, and then AC/DC even becomes like the Led Zeppelin copy band. No one remembers them that way now, but back in the day, that's how people thought of them. So when you're in
Yeah.
this early stage in a genre, and even if you're however many albums you're in at this point, like it's still very easy to sort of unintentionally get inspired in a way from these bands, and it is very hard to carve out like an individual sound that sounds uniquely like you. But Sowulo, I put on that side of the spectrum where like if I put Sowulo on, it sounds like Sowulo. And this album to me made that even more apparent. Where when you do pull all of those layers back, you still get Sowulo. Like there,
Mhm.
like that. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on that actual thought of like sounding too much like someone or someone else or something like that. In a style of music like this that's so young, that's inevitably going to happen. But you still
Yeah.
find ways to carve out your own sound. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's interesting because I basically disagree on uh, because the genre is so young,
Hmm.
it sounds the same.
Hmm.
Because then you've got all these ways and possibilities to make it sound different
Hmm.
because nobody has done it
Hmm.
in a different way. But like the unfortunate thing here is
Hmm.
that if you make something that is really close to Varduna or Heilung,
Hmm.
that will become successful.
Hmm.
Um, that is the biggest problem here.
Yeah.
So you see it like it's like popping up like mushrooms, like this kind of it,
That was the perfect. That was the
oh
perfect
man.
imagery.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's going so fast.
Yeah.
There's so many and it's just copy paste and it is just horrible. Like they're not thinking about how can I sound a little bit different. No,
Hmm.
it seems that they really aim to sound exactly like that.
Hmm.
And that is so simple
Hmm.
because the instruments that you use, it's not so you don't have so much options
Yeah.
if you want to use historical instruments in like a Northwestern Europe
Hmm.
spectrum. So that will sound like really like from the start quite similar. And then
Yep.
you have to think about, oh, but then I need to make a composition that is completely different, or different influence, or a different instruments on top of it to make it different.
Hmm.
And I think that is really important because authenticity is really, really important for me.
Hmm.
Like I think it's ridiculous to make music that already exists. That is so stupid. And even like if you take a step further and talk about cover bands, I don't get that concept at all. I think that is just a waste of time
Faber's bringing
because
out the claws. He
yeah,
had a long
exactly.
day of language, and now.
Let's fucking do it. I'm not gonna say
No,
any
you're
names,
good. You're good.
okay? I want to, but I will not.
You're good.
Um,
Hey man, you can say whatever you want to say.
That's a different talk. Let's
Okay,
do
yeah,
that
sounds good.
again.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we
But
were talking about your album. That's right. That's how this started.
yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, so I'm really happy that you say like still when I made it smaller, it sounded like something else,
Mhm,
something like Sowulo.
mhm.
Was there a music piece that you remember or a sound or something like that that you thought, okay, but you're hitting something really close to this or that?
Well, okay, so you're gonna have to be gracious with me because I couldn't actually remember the. I might get the names of whichever tracks they were
Of
wrong,
course, of
right?
course, of
But
course.
I was going to bring this up anyway. That what I really enjoyed about this was when you have this sound that you're known for, which is like this big. I'm gonna use a funny word here, and feel free to laugh. This big throbbing sound, like that is solo to me. Like those pulsing tracks that you have, like that has always been a core part of listening to solo for me. And so when I have this album that's more, I don't want to say it's entirely ambient, but it is quieter, it's more meditative, it is more like the night, right? What it ends up doing is then when you do get another track that has a really good beat to it, like your older material, I appreciate it so much more. Where I'm like, oh, here we go, here we fucking go. And that is just, I found that, and it's not surprising, right? Because contrast is such an important part of making music, right? Well, some musics are supposed to be monotone the whole way, but
Yeah.
mostly and basically speaking, contrast is such an important part of making music. And I found that because of whatever tracks they were, because now I'm so off on this end, I cannot even remember which tracks have these beats. Definitely Full Mona. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, definitely others too. But when those tracks do come back around between these meditative tracks that have a pulse and have a beat to it, they're more memorable to me, at the
Mhm.
very least. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, my previous albums were more, let's say, aggressive all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And after a while, it normalizes.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just it's not that powerful anymore. And of course, like I don't want to give any of my recipes, but in my mind, I'm basically I'm a metal band from the Viking Age.
Yep.
So I don't use any electric guitars, etc. But what if there was a metal band in Viking Age period? Something
This is
like
your
that.
power ballad album.
Yeah, exactly. And this is my power ballad album. Yeah. Um, and in the concept of the album, I gave the moon songs more
Mm-hmm.
energy, more
Mm-hmm.
drums, boom, boom.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then the other albums, between the phases of the moon, the other tracks
Mm-hmm.
between them are way more relaxed and way
Mm-hmm.
more like the darkness of the night. And then when a moon track comes back, then it's more, yeah, powering and energizing
Mm-hmm.
and more that drum beat going on. Yeah.
I think this is a beautiful example. I said this. I said this before when we started talking about the album. Just what really cool stuff can happen when you let yourself become thoroughly inspired by your own concept, right? Like
Yeah.
anyone could be like, "This album's about the moon" because the album cover has a moon on it, and
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
it,
Exactly.
right? That's one layer, and you can
Yeah.
go all the way down to the degree of this album where like no, the moon phases are the strong ones, and in between, it's the quiet of night. Like that is just artistically fascinating to me. And then that brings me to like you mentioned it in our emails before this that these tracks tell a story. Um, just entirely dependent on how much of the story that you feel like giving away and how much of it you want people to just sort of figure out for themselves. I would love to hear what story, what or at least how much of the story do you want to sort of let us in on that these tracks are telling throughout the album?
Yeah. Well, I'm always co-creating my
Mm-hmm.
music. So something out there, um, is already having these songs, and I just need to realize them.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm always trying, also with this, like with this part of the music, I don't try to have my part of my brain, the gray mass, like too much going on.
Hmm.
Of course, it's a nice tool, but I want to go a level deeper, and so I co-create my albums
Hmm.
with spirit, you can
Hmm.
say, or with the cosmos,
Hmm.
and so that is one important thing. So when I start, I have already a direction, not a general direction. I know what kind of direction because stuff is already happening in my life that brings me in a new spiritual chapter.
Hmm.
And then I try to discover what is this chapter all about. And then I try to pinpoint it, narrow it down to a more um, archetypical, how do you say it?
Yeah, archetypical. Yeah.
Archetypical way and more universal way.
Hmm.
Like I'm struggling as a human being, as every single human being.
Hey man, you're
Um,
talking to an American. I understand exactly what you're talking about. Every
exactly.
day,
So,
getting up is a challenge.
oh yeah. So then I just try to pinpoint it. What is happening with me, and what does it tell me, and then I just try to see it as something universal, and then I try to make it that other people understand it as well. Or
Hmm.
even that I don't have to do that because that comes automatically when you make it universal and archetypical.
Hmm.
And I try to understand the teachings that I get. And my way, my spiritual way is also through the music. So it's a circle. So music is my spiritual way, but my spiritual way influences my music. And then I go deep into like what is this new chapter all about? And it was really clear that I had my chapter of destiny. And then something really dark came.
Hmm.
And I felt like I also need to become more quiet because it's becoming more and more and more and bigger and bigger and bigger. I'm gonna have a big burnout if I continue like this.
Hmm.
So I felt that I needed to calm down to go back into the winter period or go
Hmm.
back in from daytime to nighttime. And I felt that I and the world were heading that way. Um, so then I just started collecting songs, and I always start with the music because music is the most important part for me.
Hmm.
And then I just have to listen to the song and listen to what it has to tell. And then, of course, I can really connect it to the concept, and then the words and the teachings that I receive, I can put in the songs.
Hmm.
So that is how it works. And that is the I think the only way to make a sincere and profound, or how do you say it, like an
Meaningful.
album meaningful. Yeah, exactly. Meaningful concept or a meaningful album that is really telling something and not
Hmm.
just picking up the EDA and say, oh, this is amazing. Let's just blur that out.
I can say
And
these words.
I can say this and not even pronouncing it correctly.
Yep.
But like I really try to do it the other way around and make it
Hmm.
as fucking meaningful as possible.
Yeah, man, and it's on that note, right, and especially on the when your claws came out. Like, I think another thing that we're looking at here is like when something does get popular, right? You're gonna have the people who latch on because it's popular, and then that is ultimately what can threaten a style of music, right? Is that if people don't really put their flag in the ground and say, and sort of like maybe draw their line, right, of what they're going to tolerate or accept, a style of music can just fall apart because no one put a flag in the ground, right? And that kind of stuff I do worry about, right? Especially as someone who's
Me
fairly
too.
right, you too, as someone who's fairly invested in this music scene. It's all yeah, and but I think your point is very well taken that just make something meaningful seems like it's such a simple thing to ask, but there's a lot of noise for
Oh
sure.
yeah.
There's a lot of
Yeah.
noise. And yeah, so I think we keep getting like two old men like I'm gonna
Yeah, let's do that. I'm good at that. So let's continue.
yeah. So when I'm thinking about sort of how you were trying something different this time around, what did you actually? You know what? No, before I talk about that, I would like to ask you: was there any track on this album that was a particular challenge for you? Especially considering, well, I mean, I'm assuming the Carnix track might have just been difficult purely based on having to play the Carnix like that. It seemed no.
No, that was so simple.
Okay,
Man,
just goes to
it,
show you what the fuck I know.
it was late at night, and I made this almost like ceremonial
Hmm.
energy
Hmm.
situation in the studio.
Hmm.
And I thought, like, let's have a conversation, the Carnix and me, and like the ancestors, and let's really try something spiritual and just capture it with some mics.
Yep.
And that is what I did. So when I recorded it, um, the audio engineer guy, he was like,
Hmm.
"Whoa, what the fuck just happened, man?" He had like goosebumps, and
Hmm.
he is not spiritual at all, but he was like, "Wow, something happened." And then
Hmm.
I just took some parts out that weren't or let's say not so beautiful, not so meaningful.
Hmm.
Um, so maybe I played like a track of maybe 8 minutes, and I
Hmm.
reduced it a little bit, and then
Hmm.
it was done. And then I, of course, had some fun with it, with putting it through effects to make something weird
Hmm.
and cosmic and night, something that had the energy of the night, and the stars and all the wisdom that is in there. So it was super easy to
Yes,
make.
that goes to show what I know. See, as a string player, I just immediately I hear someone playing a brass instrument, and I'm like, how do they do that? I've tried.
Yeah.
I cannot get the embouchure correct whenever I try to play a brass instrument. Um, but okay, yeah, goes to show what I know. So then, okay, what was the hardest one or challenging? Which
Oh,
track did challenge you the most?
let me check the track list.
Ooh, some subtle marketing.
Yeah, exactly. No. Um, Man, and boy, oh boy. Oh well, Svefnian. It like
Hmm.
because I just it's almost at the end. I'm not gonna talk long about that because I just thought it was boring. Um, so when I wrote it, it was I started with the Irish bouzouki. So
Hmm.
let's say a guitar.
Hmm.
And I thought I'm not gonna try to let it sound something historical or something old. I'm
Hmm.
just gonna put some distortion on there and like a mega reverb and delay. But then composition wise, I'm gonna put in there some um, more traditional scales.
Hmm.
And then I just messed around with that, and it just became really atmospheric and beautiful. But when we had to put some lyrics on there, it just became boring.
Yeah.
And I did my best to try to experiment, but it just all downgraded
Hmm.
the instrumental thing. So I really hope that I one day I will put it out there without any voices. So that was a difficult one. That was a
That's
really,
some
really
cutting
difficult.
honesty.
Yeah. So I put it just in the end of the album, right? Um,
Well, I guess
but
talking about it. Oh no, I'm sorry. Please, you go.
no,
Yeah.
but it's okay. And then the concept also really fitted because it's Sweftian means to dream,
Hmm.
and the track was really atmospheric, but you could say boring because it's just how do you say it? Nothing much is happening. So
Hmm.
it's also you're gonna get in a trance,
Hmm.
and then I just took that opportunity to make a dreamy track of it. Yeah.
Hmm.
So that's the difficult when you have got something beautiful to start with, instrumental, you put some vocals on there and you're like, it's downgrading now,
Yep.
but then make something meaningful because um, I'm co-creating. So
Hmm.
I'm also listening to what is being created
Hmm.
and then make something completely meaningful, accept it and make something meaningful
Hmm.
with it. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Where I was going to go with this is, you mentioned the word experimenting, and I'm kind of what I want to bring up is that, like, yeah, this album is quieter and all of that, but that doesn't mean that you didn't have some tricks up your sleeve. Because there's
Mhm.
the one track that, especially because I wrote out the tracks, and I'm gonna again butcher the pronunciation. But
Yeah,
it is
let's do it.
track 6, Miscella Scormont. Fuck me.
Oh, wow.
But so this one starts with a
Do you mean
very
like Michele Sterran?
oh yes, that one. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
So
So
so if we
that one's
translate it,
experimental.
yeah, if we translate it,
Hmm.
it's mighty stars. So look at it now
Okay.
and see mighty stars,
Okay.
sterran. Yeah.
For sure.
So
Yeah. You're right. It is pretty intuitive. Yeah. But the track itself, like when it started, it kind of startled me because it has a you use sounds like more vocal sounds like grunting, than is at least elsewhere on the album up until that point. That one stuck out as with me as like weird in a good way, where I kept like every time I listened through the album, I'm listening for it like, okay, I kind of hear this now, but like what was sort of like the thought behind that track?
I wanted to have the bigness
Hmm.
of the universe, and I wanted to to make the sound of you feeling really small
Hmm.
underneath these mighty stars.
Okay.
Um, so the strings are really filmic, like yeah, like in
Hmm.
film scores,
Yep.
and it's
Cinematic.
really really big, really cinematic, and yeah, I just went crazy on sound design
Hmm.
to
I can
make
tell.
it
Yeah.
like if you were floating between the stars.
Hmm.
Um, so then you really try to grasp the sound, make meaning out of
Hmm.
it, and then make it even more colorful.
Hmm.
That's one singular process, like making it just experiment and then grasp like what is the song wanting to say, and
Hmm.
then when you've got the feeling now it's going in this direction, then of course as a modern composer you can just push it in that direction.
Hmm.
Yeah,
For
yeah.
sure. So then I guess the last question I have for you just about the track list then is, do you have a track here that like sticks out as your favorite? I know it's kind of like picking a favorite kid, but like, or
Okay.
maybe one that actually just stands out for you sort of as the most memorable in terms of writing. Yeah, if there's any one track that like maybe one could call your favorite, yeah, what would it be?
Well, the last, let's say, last two songs that I made was
Hmm.
Asterfan and
Okay.
Solmani. So
Hmm.
both of those tracks were really like that was the concept was already there, was taking form, and it was like the last bits and pieces,
Hmm.
and that became just the most
Hmm.
important for me. That pinpointed it really strongly on a composition wise. Like I'm also like when I say like I'm co-creating, then like in the end, I finally grasp what the hell I'm doing, right? Like,
Yep.
so then you can make this almost like the ultra tracks of the album, because
Mhm.
then you really, really know what direction it is, and then oh, so this is the musical language that we're now speaking.
Mhm.
Um, and but I think it's difficult to choose from Astervan and Soleimani, because both are completely different, um, but magical. But let me tell you about Soleimani.
Yeah,
Like,
please.
um, we had a concert and somebody dropped my nickel harpa, and it just,
This is that one. Okay. Yep.
yeah,
Hmm.
that just, my nickel harpa just broke completely. And it's a
Oh.
traditional Swedish instrument. I was living in the Netherlands, and I thought, well, nobody in the Netherlands is able to fix this,
Hmm.
and maybe it's total loss. So, oi, 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 that really was a, yeah, that was just a big loss.
Yeah, I remember reading
Um,
that. That broke my heart. Like just
yeah.
putting myself there. God.
Yeah, of course. Like, well, and I was not able to buy a new one, for
Hmm.
example. Like, I didn't have the finances,
Those things are so
financial.
expensive.
Oh
Like,
yeah, thousands of euros,
yeah.
and I didn't have the financial resources.
Hmm.
And let me add, I don't want to be like, you're so, it's so sad, but both my father, like, I
Hmm.
have to say it correctly. My my father died
Hmm.
just a couple of months before that, and my stepfather also died 3 months
Hmm.
later. And then my nickel harpa broke. And I was writing a deep album about the night and the darkness within, the
Hmm.
night within. And so, man, this was just a horrible thing. That
Yep.
also my beloved instrument died.
Hmm.
Um, and then I just couldn't believe it. I had it in a case for a couple, for a week. I didn't,
Didn't
I
want to look
had
at it.
not, like, I didn't have the emotional strength to look at it and check it out, because I was just in grief on
Hmm.
so many layers.
Hmm.
And financially, I was also fucked. So I was grieving about that,
Yep.
and grieving about my death of my father, and also this instrument. But
Hmm.
after a week or so, I grabbed it and I started playing on it. And within, I think, just instantly, I started to create Soul and Mani.
Hmm.
So I didn't think about it. I just grabbed the mic because I felt, oh, this is a magical moment.
Hmm.
You recognize it after 12 years of making music.
Yeah.
And so I started recording myself, and I didn't re-record it in a fancy album studio later. I just kept it like it was, as a home studio. Um, and it was just this broken nickel harpa that was completely off, making funny noises,
Hmm.
lamenting, is that the word? Like,
Yeah.
it was crying,
Yeah.
right? It was crying through its brokenness, and that was just really magical for me.
Hmm.
And to after that, after just the nickel harpa, that is really the backbone of the whole music piece, and then putting meaningful composition on top of that, but keeping it very, very simple.
Hmm.
That was just a way for me to deal with grief.
Hmm.
And that just really changed something in me, that healed something in me.
Hmm.
So that one is really, really important for me.
Cool. Yeah, I figured it would be that one because I did remember reading and seeing the video and all of that about it, but I didn't remember. I didn't actually go back and check which track it was. I kind of wanted
Yeah,
to surprise myself with it.
yeah.
Yeah. So I guess the last question I have for you is, now that you're at the other end of this, like, what is there anything in particular that you learned during the process of making NEAT that you want to bring forward in whatever you do next?
Mm. Well, yeah, like I always say, like, if you're an artist and you make an album, just before you release it, you're like highly pregnant. And then you let go of the child, and you're mentally and physically completely a wreck, because the child was just a parasite and was eating you alive. And So, and especially when it's something about grief and about darkness and the darkness within and the night within, it was really like uh, a tough one.
Yep.
So I really feel like I'm in this moment in my life that it's becoming uh, autumn now, and the
Hmm.
winter is coming, and it's like not having to work day and night on an album, uh, and having that nothingness back is really difficult, but
Hmm.
also really beautiful. So also like in creating that album, the nothingness and the darkness was already there, but now I just finished the album and I just go completely into the nothingness. I gave myself the assignment to not create any music in the coming weeks or
Hmm.
months, just not to continue and rush forward, but
Hmm.
just to it's also the message of the entire album is like stop once in a while, go and die. um, it's a beautiful thing to
Hmm.
die. Um, and so I'm dying at the moment. I'm in death.
Hmm.
I'm nothing. And I'm really trying to make friends with that.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm gonna really take that in and take wisdom and knowledge from that,
Hmm.
and then see what the new chapter is going to be about. But like in a certain way, of course, we all know what will happen because I'm just fo following the path of the cycle. So it's going to be an album that I'm gonna reinvent solo, and it's gonna be re I'm gonna be reborn,
Hmm.
and Solo is gonna be reborn, and the sound is gonna be reborn, and I'm gonna co-create it, so I'm still don't know what it's going to be exactly, but it's going to be something resurrection out of the stillness, out of the darkness, out of death,
Hmm.
so a new dawn can break.
Well, beautiful, man. Well, in that case, I appreciate you coming back from the dead to talk with little old me about this album. Very much appreciated. Yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So Faber, it has been really great, man, to talk about all of this. Always great chatting with you. Where can people find you if they want to sort of the obligatory send off for podcast episodes? Where can people find you if they want to learn more about you, and where is the best place for them to support you if they feel the motivation to?
Mm. Well, they can just pick their favorite platform. Unfortunately, Sowulo is there to be found. Um,
We have to. We don't have a choice.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. If you want to f find Sowulo, you can find it on
Yep.
your platform. No problem there. So I'm happy with that. So
Mhm.
you can just pick whatever you like. I'm not gonna say exactly where to go. But where what I'm really proud of is the two music videos that we made.
Mhm.
That is a hell of expensive
Yeah.
thing to do. So please check it out because
Yes.
I also tried to take that really seriously,
Mhm.
um, and um, and put a lot of meaning into those music videos, uh, as every layer that I do with my art. So please check out the music videos. That will be amazing. And it tells the story of the album, it tells the story of the lyrics. And yeah, I really hope that people will go and dig into the lyrics because
Mhm.
it takes the same amount of time to get the lyrics done than all the musical parts.
It's a
And like
labor of
that,
love.
oh, that's just crazy. So it would be amazing if people check that out.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, Faber, again, thank you so much for coming on to the Nordic Sound. It was a really great conversation. Gave me a lot more to think about this work of art that you all at Solo have made for us. Hang out after I stop the recording, but otherwise, thank you so much for coming on, man, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course.